Right on your screen in a minute, you should see the agenda for today's short presentation. We'll start by introducing the project team and talking about the existing conditions on Rockville Road. The project has already collected information from the public in 2 questionnaires last year. If you're one of the 1,900 people who responded, we want to thank you. We'll provide a brief summary of responses before detailing the potential design options that respond to your preferences. Then we'll compare the similarities of the construction options and contrast their differences in cost and potential impacts. We will then detail the ways that you can provide information to the public in coming days and talk about next steps for the project. Finally, we've blocked out plenty of time to answer your questions. So let's get started. As Will mentioned, I'm Richard Gilliott. I'm a project manager for the Indiana Department of Transportation, and I live in this area, but I wasn't able to vote on your summaries. Otherwise, I've been checking Wayne Township resident. Now, NDOT is assisting, NDOT is being assisted on this project by a consultant team that's all local. They're all from Indianapolis area. And his first is Bill Curtis. He's with Micah Baker. And he's responsible for the design of the project. Then we have Will Wingfield with C2 Strategic Communication. He and his team are overseeing the communication for this project, as well as these virtual meetings, and when the COVID-19 is over, live in public, in-person meetings that we can actually roll out the plans and get down and dirty with the what's going on with the project. And then we have Dave Cleveland. He's a vice president of Cordino Group. He's responsible for overseeing environmental as well as traffic studies and crash history analysis. Now we'll move on to the next screen. And here's the precise project limits. It goes from I-465 on the east side of your screen. I'm sorry, the right side of your screen. That's the east side of the project. And it goes to the left on the screen, which is the west. And it goes to 800 feet east of Raceway Road. It's 3 miles long. Now, NDOT has some neighboring projects planned at the beginning of this year. And we'll discuss that at the end of this presentation. Now, NDOT builds and maintains interstates, U.S. highways, and state routes. So you may be wondering, why are we in here? This is a local area, and that is true. The state has 3 state routes on the west side of Marion County. You may be familiar with them as Washington Street, but west of 465, that's also known as US 40. We have US 36, which is also known as Rockville Road. And then north of this project, we have Crawfordsville Road, which is also known as US 136. Now, these same roads east of 465 are actually controlled by the city of Indianapolis. In Marion County, DPW, which is Department of Public Works, maintains the city streets such as 10th Street and Moore Street, high school, girls' school, roads such like that. Now, as part of our review of the existing Rockville Road, Cordino studied the existing traffic volumes and crash history. To tell you more about that, I'm going to hand this over to Dave Cleveland. Dave, take it away for us.
Thank you, Richard. Every project, the project development really starts with identifying the purpose and need for the project. And there's definitely a need for this project, but it's important, I think, to remember back to pre-COVID pandemic days. Traffic patterns have changed here in the last 9 months, but they're anticipated to go back to where they were. But pre-pandemic, the need is based on traffic operations. The purpose is to improve the traffic operations. And so when we talk operations, we talk traffic congestion, and we also talk safety. In this first slide here, we'll be more focused on the traffic side. Once again, traffic, think pre-pandemic. NDOT does traffic counts on their roads throughout the state every couple years. And the information on this slide is from the NDOT traffic count database system, NDOT TCDS. It's on their website. And what it shows is there was significant growth in traffic between 2016 and 2019. I caution the group, don't get too hung up on the exact numbers. I mean, this is just 2 data points, a count in 2016 and a count in 2019, but that is the official traffic count. The key takeaway, like I said, don't get too hung up on the number. It does show significant growth. The key takeaway is that there is growth. There was growth out there before the pandemic, and that it's not just Avon traffic. It's on the east side of the corridor as well. And moving forward, in the engineering assessment phase that we're in, we're going to look at future traffic growth. And I just want to mention that growth, those assumptions come from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Planning Organization, the Indianapolis MPO travel demand model. And what that is, it's a large travel demand model, traffic model for a 9-county area, Marion County and the surrounding donut counties. And that includes, roadway links and data for the roadway, but it also includes socioeconomic data, housing starts, employment trends, all those sorts of things. So it's really good source. So what we're doing is we're looking at the year 2045 traffic model, travel demand model, and it's very common for NDOT to coordinate with the Indianapolis MPO on these projects in this region. And the future traffic model does show pretty steady growth between now and say the year 2045. It's a pretty steady growth, and so that just furthers the need for this project. The traffic is going to grow once we get out of this pandemic. The next slide, we'll talk more about safety. And so on the safety side, this is a heat map. I'll explain that here in a second, what that means. But the state police team with NDOT and with local police departments, and they maintain a large database. It's an ARIES database is what it's called. So anytime there's a crash, you fill out a police report. That information is kept in the database, the location, the type of crash, et cetera, the details. NDOT uses that database to assess safety needs for projects. The NDOT takes it a step further. They've teamed with Purdue University to develop software called Hazard Analysis Tool to do statistical analysis on that crash data. And it helps them identify corridors and intersections of safety concern. And for this project, this corridor, the corridor in general, we can do this analysis for corridors and intersections. The corridor is experiencing a higher number of crashes than would be anticipated per the statistical analysis for a corridor of this type. Another piece of information I think that's valuable is of all the crashes out there, 46% of them are rear end crashes, which rear end crashes typically are prevalent in congested areas, especially at intersections. People are stopped at the intersection. You come up on the back of a queue, the line of cars waiting to go, and you rear end those cars. Or people try to get through the light, but maybe somebody stops and you're not expecting and you run into the back of them. So I'm sure that's been experienced out there. Also access. If somebody pulls onto 36 unexpected and you're traveling down 36, you might run into the back of them. So those types of crashes are happening. This heat map you see here, we're trying to show where the worst spots are in the corridor. Like I said, in general, the corridor is higher than would be anticipated, but it's really even more so at the signalized intersections, all of them except for the signal at LA Fitness, that was actually lower than anticipated. But the other signalized intersections of Bridgeport Ritchie, Country Club Road, Transfer Drive, Girls School Road, High School Road, those were all quite a bit higher per the statistical analysis than anticipated for a corridor of this type. In fact, Girls School Road, you see it as red there, that's where it's hottest. Per the statistical analysis, that would be in the top 1% statewide for a facility of this type for crash concern. High School Road would be in the top 5%. Country Club Road is not too far behind that. So it's really Girls School Road and High School Road and all of these signalized intersections except for LA Fitness. With that, I'd like to talk about your feedback and potential design solutions. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bill Curtis. Bill.
Well, before we get going, Will, are there any questions that need a clarification before I start?
I'm not seeing any right now, so you can press ahead. Thanks, Bill.
All right, thank you. When we started this project, NDOT directed our team to start from square one, engage the public, review the data, develop some fresh ideas, and then take those ideas back to the public. And that's exactly what we're doing here today. Before the COVID-19 shutdown back in March, we asked the public to identify top issues facing the Rockville Road corridor. And after receiving 1,900 responses, congestion and safety were identified as the top issues. We followed that up with a second questionnaire in June regarding potential engineering solutions. And for congestion, 49% of respondents ranked added capacity as their top solution. Additional turn lanes at the major intersections were the second highest solution. For safety, on the next slide, please. For safety, the top solution selected by 40% of respondents was to maintain the existing pavement and minimize potholes. Other top safety solutions included street lighting, lane striping, sidewalks, and bicycle facilities. Feedback from both these questionnaires has helped inform the design options we're presenting here today. And to see the full questionnaires and a summary of the responses, we encourage you to visit the project documents webpage on modernrockville.com. To this point, the design team has evaluated 3 potential options for Rockville Road. The first would be no construction at all. More on that will be talked about in a minute. The second option would be maintain 2 through lanes in each direction along Rockville Road and build displaced left turn intersections as a short-term measure to address congestion at the major intersections. Finally, the third option would be to add a third travel lane in each direction to Rockville. We have some ideas about how we can do this while minimizing impacts. As noted before, you will be provided an opportunity at the end of presentation where you can provide feedback. So that said, let's dive into the options. The no-build option maintains the existing 5-lane roadway with paved shoulders. NDOT would continue to maintain the existing pavement and bridges, but no congestion reductions would be made. And as Dave indicated previously, traffic is anticipated to continue to grow, making the situation worse and overwhelming intersections at peak times. With no safety improvements, crash rates would also continue to increase with the level of congestion. This option also does not provide improvements for drainage issues throughout the corridor or provide improvements for bicyclists and pedestrians as identified in the public response. Finally, project funding would be diverted to improve safety and congestion in other communities around the state. While this option does not improve the Rockville Road corridor, it does serve as a basis of comparison for the other 2 options. Based on the results of the questionnaire, there was a desire for a solution that wouldn't require additional travel lanes throughout the corridor. Following a review of several alternate intersection types, the team determined the displaced left turn intersection provided the most potential. Rather than me try to explain how a displaced left turn works with graphics, we would like to share a short video developed by the Federal Highway Administration.
One innovative intersection design, the displaced left turn intersection, implements unopposed left turns at intersections by crossing traffic over to the other side of the road in advance. At many intersections, the critical question is how to address left turns. How they are treated has an impact on the efficiency of the intersection and can reduce a crash type that tends to be quite severe. The displaced left turn design, also known as the continuous flow intersection or CFI, moves the left turn crossover upstream. Drivers cross over to the left side of the road into an exclusive left turn lane. As they enter the primary intersection, the left turns proceed unopposed. Compared to a conventional intersection, conflicts are fewer at a DLT, an important step to improving intersection safety. Conflict points are reduced from 32 for a conventional intersection to 28 for a full DLT. Additionally, the DLT design allows left-turning traffic to move simultaneously with through traffic, resulting in significant operational benefits. Studies show this increases capacity as much as 70%.
The big, outstanding benefit is capacity.
Signs and pavement markings inform and guide drivers as they approach a displaced left-turn intersection. Traffic signals are easily synchronized, resulting in improved efficiency.
A DLT is terrific for signal timing. It allows us to reduce the cycle length, so it reduces the red time for everybody. So we're able to reduce cycles, establish good progression. The individual signals within the DLT are easy to coordinate with each other. So from a driver point of view, most all drivers would only have to stop once, if at all.
The current option proposes the installation of a displaced left turn intersection at Country Club, Girls School Road, and High School Road only, and only on Rockville Road. The local roadways would operate in the same manner as they do today, although the opportunity to turn right on a red would no longer exist at those intersections. While this design has been shown to be safe and effective in more than 10 states, it would be one of the first for drivers in Indiana. One drawback to this alternative is the reduction in access within the limits of the displaced left turn lane. One of the top solutions from the January questionnaire was additional travel lanes. Adding travel lanes would address existing and future congestion. A primary concern of added travel lanes is the potential for the roadway to move closer to your home or business. The options we're presenting allows for additional travel lanes to be added almost entirely within the existing roadway. Currently, Rockville Road consists of, on average, 2 12-foot lanes in each direction, a 16-foot center median, and 10-foot wide paved shoulders for a total of 84 feet. We propose reusing portions of the existing center median and paved shoulders. The left and center lane in each direction would be reduced to 11 feet, which has been shown to reduce traffic speeds. The proposed right lane would be 12-foot wide, and driveway entrances and exits or exit entrances would be built with wider turning radii to allow easier entry and exit. Not including the curb and gutter needed for drainage improvements, we estimate this option to be 85 feet wide, only 1 foot wider than what's there today. By spreading traffic across 3 lanes, this option will improve safety and allow more traffic to pass through a traditional signal. Before we move on to compare and contrast the options, let's check with Will to see if there's any clarification needed.
We're starting to see some questions come in, and that's helpful. I think a lot of these questions are ones that we can continue to hold to the end. Thank you.
Great. All right, let's start by looking at some features that are applicable to both build options. Access and safety for both pedestrians and bicycles ranked high in the 2 public questionnaires. To provide complete mobility for all road users, bicycle and pedestrian facilities are recommended along Rockville Road for both options. The proposed plan calls for a 6-foot wide sidewalk, as shown on the left, along the south side of Rockville Road. INDOT is also looking for feedback on the type of pedestrian facility to include on the north side of the road, either a 6-foot wide sidewalk adjacent to the roadway, similar to the south side, a 5-foot sidewalk with a 5-foot grass buffer, or a 10-foot multi-use path with a 5-foot grass buffer. where the 10-foot multi-use path would allow for bicycle traffic. Another commonality between the two alternatives is the proposed removal of the existing continuous center turn lane and paved shoulders. Paved shoulders are typically designed for rural or high-speed routes, neither of which apply to Rockville Road. The center turn lane would be replaced with a raised median to improve safety by limiting left turns and traffic conflict points to defined locations. Additional benefits of a raised median include providing safe stop points for pedestrians crossing Rockville Road. A raised median combined with an exterior curb and narrower lanes will help calm traffic and have been shown to reduce speeds. And longer sections of center median without gaps would be available to local organizations interested in maintaining the landscaping. Again, NDOT would like to hear from the public relating to the raised medians. First, where to allow gaps for left turns, such as high traffic businesses or side roads. This information is very important to the project team and will help guide future decisions. Second, what community-minded organizations such as neighborhood associations and local businesses are interested in the upkeep of low maintenance landscape in the medians? One area where the options differ is cost. The estimated cost to build the added travel lanes option is $21 million. The estimated cost to build the displaced left turn option is $17 million. While initially less expensive, the displaced left turn option does not perform as well over time as the added travel lanes option, meaning NDOT would need to improve Rockville Road again at an added cost. The additional cost to build the bicycle and pedestrian facilities range from $1 to $1.5 million, depending on the preferred configuration. We expect the majority of the roadway improvements for both options can fit within the land the state already owns along Rockville Road, which is known as right-of-way. When sidewalks and improvements along the local roads are included, the potential need for additional land could increase to 0.7 acres across the entire project line. Would not dramatically expand the footprint of the existing intersections. The displaced left turn lane would complicate access for some businesses, specifically in the northwest corner of Rockville and Country Club, potentially requiring them to be relocated. It is important to remember we are still gathering input into the development of this project, and these are planning level estimates only. At this time, we do not have specifics about what land would need to be purchased and from which owners. We plan to provide more details during the next round of public involvement once a preferred design is recommended. Now I'm going to turn things over to Will to see if we need any more clarifications before talking about next steps. Will?
As we're nearing the very end of this presentation, I think that we've got some questions that are in. Looking forward to answering those, but I think we can wrap it up. And I think that that is my turn to take over. So if you would advance the slide, and we can talk about that. So now let's talk about the next steps for the development of the Modern Rockville Road project. Now that you've heard this presentation from us, we want to hear from you. Earlier this week, we sent a message to our email and text message subscribers with a 6-question comment form, which is also on the homepage of modernrockville.com. We'll be collecting responses through mid-February. And if you have a specific question, one about your property, or would like to request a small group meeting or presentation, your best choice is to contact NDOT directly. There's 2 ways to do so. You can call 855-NDOT4U. That's 1-855-463-6848, or you can email, the address is NDOT, that's INDOT at INDOT.in.gov for a response after today's meeting. You can also follow us on social media. The addresses are facebook.com/modernrockville or twitter.com/modernrockville. So now let's look ahead to this year that we're now in, 2021. expect to see a number of things happening on different fronts. Let's first talk about some neighboring projects that are separate from this project. They're separate from this project. We will want to make sure that you're aware of them and not get caught by surprise. Late last year, NDOT awarded a $1.7 million contract to build a new right turn lane for eastbound Rockville Road onto High School Road. This will help clear the way for traffic proceeding straight through the intersection onto I-465. And this project also includes drainage improvements in the area. Next month, the image below, NDOT plans to open contractor bids on a project to add lanes to US 36 in Avon. The project limits are from Shiloh Park Drive, right across from the Target, to 800 feet east of Raceway Road. That's the dividing line for this project right around LA Fitness. It's important to remember that these two projects are separate and previously planned. The solutions that are being built for these projects are different from what may be right for this section of Rockville Road. So speaking of this project, what are the next steps for Modern Rockville Road? NDOT's project team will review the public input collected through mid-February and recommend one solution for additional public input later this year. We anticipate holding a public hearing at that time. Additional information about costs and land needs will be presented then as well. Following this public hearing and the public comment period that follows, the project team would review public input again and decide on what the best engineering solution is. Then NDOT would purchase any land that's needed and complete the design of the construction plans. And should a construction option be selected, NDOT plans to bid the project and begin construction starting in 2023 with a construction period anticipated to take 2 years to complete. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. We're now going to move to the question and answer portion, and I've got some questions to read off. But before we do that, I wanted to thank everyone again for joining us today. We know you have busy lives. You're free to drop off the presentation at any time, but we want to try to keep you engaged and informed for as long as possible. So if you have a question about what's presented today, look for the question and answer or Q&A button in your Zoom window to type out and submit those questions. We're going to start with the questions that came in earliest, and we're going to prioritize those ones that apply to the most people so we can keep you here and engaged for as long as possible. I mentioned before the contact information. If you've got a specific question, that's 855-NDOT-4U or ndot@ndot.in.gov. I'm not going to read those out again, but let's begin with the questions. So based upon the timestamp, let's see. The first question that I have is, I have to scroll up. The question about how adding 2 additional travel lanes would stop rear end crashes. And that question comes from Carol. So let's see, Dave or Bill, one of you want to take that?
Yeah, this is Dave, Cleveland. A lot of the rear end crashes are people driving into the back of what's called a queue, a line of cars stacked up waiting to travel. And so the concept is if the flow is better and there's less queuing at the intersections, and if you have added travel lanes or any intersection improvement, but primarily added travel lanes does this the best, you have more lanes, you can move more traffic through an intersection, you'll have less queuing and less potential for rear end crashes.
Thanks, Dave. The next question comes to us from Jeff, and he's asking about the displaced left turns and concerns about the synchronization of traffic signals. In the video, there's a reference, I may not get it exactly, about how the signals are easily synchronized, and there's concern about the progression of the existing traffic signals today on Rockville Road. I'm going to do a plug for a short video that we did earlier this year where we talk about signal synchronization across the entire corridor. This is before these solutions were identified. But Bill, maybe you could address a little bit about signal synchronization, and if somebody else you think would be good to add in on that specific to the displaced left turn option.
Thank you for thinking of me, but I honestly think Dave's going to probably be a better option for signals as well.
Yeah,
all right, thank you.
Thanks, Bill. And I'm not an expert, but the for a displaced left, at an intersection, say High School Road, the main signal at High School and Rockville Road, though that signal is directly connected to the smaller signals on each side on US 36 Rockville Road, the ones that cross the left turning traffic over to the wrong side of the road. Those are all wired together. They operate as one signal. Further, beyond that, the signals at adjacent intersections like High School, Girls School, those will all be set to have the same cycle length, overall cycle length. A signal goes through multiple phases. These people can go, then they stop, then these people go, then they stop, then these movements go. Once you get through one full iteration of movements, that's called a cycle. The cycle length will be held constant, the same for each of these intersections, and that fosters progression.
All right, thank you, Dave. The next question comes to us from Carol, and it's regarding displaced left turns again. And the question about pairing displaced lefts with a corridor that has direct access with driveways to residents and businesses. Based upon some of the examples we saw, those are corridors that don't have a large number of driveways. So, how would something like that work in this type of solution?
I'll try that one. You're correct. A lot of examples of this solution are with limited access to the roadway, but it has been, Michael Baker has designed these on roads that have driveway access from residents or businesses onto the main road. And outside the limits or the impact area of the intersections, the roadway would honestly operate similar in a similar fashion as it does today. As we mentioned during the presentation, within the impact area of the intersection, where you could typically turn into a business from US 36, there would be an area where there would be restrictions. We can't obviously have people turning right into the future proposed left turn lane. So you're correct, there are some drawbacks at the intersections, but away from the intersections, it would operate similar to what it does today.
And Bill, I think I'm going to let you finish that thought a bit more, because the next question from Melinda was, how would people access the businesses along Rockville Road? So is there anything else you want to clarify with regard to those specific areas where the crossover lanes are for that displaced left turn?
Yeah, specifically at the intersections, with the exception of the one area at Country Club, the northwest corner of Country Club in Rockville, all the other businesses at the proposed intersections, you either can get access from the local road, or there's a frontage road / driveway that connects several businesses. So while you wouldn't be able to turn directly off of Rockville Road into the business, you could just turn at the intersection and gain access from the local road to get to those businesses. And at this point, we've only identified one business that would be a challenge at.
All right, let's see. The next question comes from David. It says, why are you showing 6 feet and not the usual 3 to 4 feet foot width? And I think that's probably in regards to sidewalk. So maybe we can just talk a little bit about the difference between, the sidewalk length options, 6 versus 5 versus 10. And David, if that's not the right question that I'm asking, feel free to clarify.
Well, if it is indeed about sidewalk, the standard sidewalk that NDOT uses is 5 feet, and that's to comply with ADA regulations. You can use a 4-foot sidewalk, but at certain intervals, you need a bump out to make it wider to allow passing in that area. And then furthermore, when you put it adjacent to the roadway to give some relief from being right next to traffic, NDOT's standard is to increase the sidewalk to 6 foot. And then the other options, as we mentioned, the 5 foot grass buffer, again, that creates separation from traffic. It can feel a little more comfortable, especially next to a busier road like Rockville Road, and then the 10 foot multi-use path, as we said, is another option to really allow for bicyclists and everything to coexist with foot pedestrians. So that is why we're using the wider sidewalks.
Thanks, Bill. The next question comes to us from Carol, and it's about businesses at other intersections other than the one we previously discussed, which I believe was Rockville and Girls School, and whether we anticipated displacing any of those. I believe I can go ahead and answer that question. That's no, we do not right now anticipate displacing any businesses at any other corners of any other intersections. But if there's anything else, you unmute and stop me. Let's see. The next question comes from David, and it's comparing displaced left to a conventional intersection, and the question of would a dual left turn lane be better, particularly when you consider the businesses, than doing a displaced left. So I think maybe answer that, is maybe multiple turn lanes something that we would consider in this project?
Yeah, and this is Dave Cleveland. I'll take that one. A dual left would allow more left turners for the same amount of green time. It would not provide as much benefit as a displaced left. The key with the displaced left is that those left turners are traveling at the same time the opposing through movement is traveling. And so that's where you get the real efficiency. So for intersections with a large volume of left turns, it can be really effective. So it's a great question, a dual left. We're in the.
Oh, Dave, you hit mute for a moment.
I hit that with my pinky somehow. I don't know how. We're in the engineering assessment phase of this project. Haven't delved into a dual left, but that's a good question. Hopefully I answered that okay.
I think we'll leave it as it's something that is still on the table and something we can consider moving forward. All right, I have two questions that I'm going to combine into one because they both relate to paved shoulders. The question from Ravi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, hopefully, if not, I apologize, was about if there's a crash, and there was no place for a disabled vehicle to pull over, how would that impact traffic flow? And then Wilma asked sort of on the same vein, how would school buses, postal service, FedEx, et cetera, how would that impact be if there were no paved shoulders? Bill, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. I guess I don't have a perfect succinct answer for this, but in urbanized areas, throughout the city and everything, most areas don't have paved shoulders, and mail delivery, school buses, whatever, they put on their lights, warning signals, whatnot, and traffic just hopefully stops, I guess, and pauses so kids can get off, mail can be delivered, stuff of that nature. These are not long-term restrictions. So yes, while they can cause an inconvenience for people in the area at that time, it's just something that, lack of a better phrase, you just work with. It's part of the road environment, part of the urban environment. Same with an accident. If there is a crash with a wider road or with even with a 2-lane road, I mean, there is still an option to get around. It will back up traffic. It will cause some delays, but again, it's a short-term incident that is just part of a more urban environment. So.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Let's see. Another question from Wilma. She's asking about the bridge east of Kroger, which I'm going to interpret as the railroad bridge. I'm going to make a plug for another video that we produced on this one. Again, it was done before before these options were developed, but the question about can we address the width of the roadway, the width of these different options underneath the existing railroad bridge. Bill, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, as part of the early information acquisition, we, I think as Will described it in the video that he was referring to, we laser scanned for survey to pick up all the topographic information throughout the corridor. Included in that is the face of the pier and the abutments of the railroad bridge. And looking at that, they're currently 50, if I remember off the top of my head, 50 feet, 6 inches between the two. Even with the added travel lanes alternative, there is, and with reduced lane widths, we can get the entire roadway section, including the sidewalk in there, in just over 47 feet per direction, thereabouts. So you still have the 6-foot separation from the abutment wall where the sidewalk is, and then there's 5.5 feet or so from the center pier. So there is sufficient room to get our proposed 3-lane section through. And for the other options, it would just maintain the current 2-lane section. And
room for the sidewalks as well with the existing 2-lane section. So, all right, let's see. Another question. This one's from Wilma. The train crossings just to the south of Rockville Road at Girls Pool Road, and the cascading effects that this have on backing up traffic on a Girls Pool Road in both directions and for Rockville Road, and the impacts that this has on emergency responses, et cetera. So could we talk a little bit more about how these improvements would help address this issue that really is off of the Rockville Road corridor just slightly?
Yeah, sure. This is Dave Cleveland. I think that that's currently existing today. It's probably going to continue to exist as a challenge, but I think the proposed build alternatives, the displaced left and the added travel lane, do improve traffic operations. So I think it would improve the situation somewhat, wouldn't solve it.
All right, we're running low on questions. So hopefully if you've got some more, now would be a good time to get those in. I was gonna go back up. I think there was one that was a specific area question, kind of like that last one was, and I wanted to make sure we addressed that. I don't want to remember that one. So the question came from Mark, and it was relative to the proposed Tremont Gardens development, which I believe, Richard, is that the development that's at the southeast corner of Rockville and Bridgeport? And is that the correct one?
Yes.
Okay. The question of, is that being taken into consideration as we develop this project? I know that we're aware of it, of course.
Yes, we're aware of it. And as far as we know, we have not received anything from the developer or from the city of Indianapolis to show us the any entrances for this development or communication along those lines. We're open to the communication along with the city to work with the city in this issue. And right now, our project is just focusing on the traffic and the accidents as it is. And if that gets passed, we'll have to deal with that but the different options we're looking at can accommodate future growth. And that's an important thing.
Yep. Just to add to that, a lot of that work is done through the permitting process. So that's how that communication occurs. The developer wants to improve their access, and so they work with either the city or the state, depending upon who maintains the road, to develop a solution that works. So that's how that communications channel works. And obviously that development is at a stage where they don't have, may not have that information available for us yet. Again, starting to run to the end of the questions. I think we've got one more from Carol. It's a general question about, are these concepts supported by statistics on other streets in Indiana? And then it came in right after that. If the displaced left turns are a temporary solution, what is the permanent fix? Who wants to take that one on? Bill?
Well,
or Dave, go ahead.
I'll take part of it. I'll try. Are they these concepts supported by other projects or statistics in Indiana? I think for the displaced left, currently, I don't believe there are any displaced lefts intersections in Indiana. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but there is one that will be built here in the near future at Thompson and US 31 on the south side of Indianapolis. So that'll be the first one. But it's been done in other states, 10 different states. There's a lot of federal highway and research and whatnot that's gone into that. I know Michael Baker, Bill's with Michael Baker, has designed these before in other states. So I'd take that part of the question, Bill. I forget what the rest was.
Just with regard to the temporary versus similar, temporary versus permanent solution, what would the permanent solution be?
Yeah, I don't like for the displaced lefts, if it's a temporary solution in so many years, more is needed. What's the permanent solution? I don't know that we've assessed that yet.
Yeah, that's something that would probably be determined at that time. So seeing a few more questions coming in. Let's see. The question of whether, this question comes from Jeff, whether displaced lefts are similar to diverging diamond or double crossover interchanges. Do you want to kind of maybe compare and contrast those just to help folks understand the concept?
Yeah, this is Dave again. I think, in my opinion, they're very similar. It's channelized so that the left turn is channelized and forced to go over to what's considered the wrong side of the road. But once you follow the striping and all that and the curb lines, there's not a lot of decision making that has to happen. So that's why they're safe. You would think, oh man, this is chaos, but it's well striped, well channelized, and similar to the diverging diamonds in some of these interchanges. I think NDOT has, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 of those now, and they seem to operate really well.
Okay, let's see. Here's another question. This one comes to us from Wilma, and it's about Girls School Road. We've been talking a lot about Rockville Road today, and she wanted to know about the improvements that would be done on Girls School Road. Now, as Richard mentioned earlier, Girls School is, at least in this section near Rockville Road, a city street. That being said, this project would have some benefits on Girls School Road, similar to what we talked about with the traffic signal and the nearby railroad crossing. Is there anything else that maybe you could use to sort of explain the benefits that this would have for traffic on Girls School Road? Dave, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. I'm not sure the exact details of the alternatives, what's proposed on Girls School Road, but both options improve traffic operations, one more than the other. But by making these traffic signals more efficient, that allows more green time a higher percentage of green time to be allotted to the side streets, Girls School Road. It's a major thoroughfare. And so if a higher percentage of green time is given to that road, it's going to experience less delay at the signal. That's about all I can say at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer there. Let's see. Another question. Where else in Indiana does a state road have a walk or bicycle lane, maybe similar to what we have here with a multi-use path? I know there are examples, but I'm being able to come up with them off the top of my head is more challenging. I believe there's one on US 40 in Cumberland, if I recall correctly. Does anyone else have one that immediately springs to mind? There's been so many enhancement projects.
Yeah, I apologize. Nothing springs to mind. There has to be something in Hamilton County, I would think.
I know there's significant sidewalks on State Road 32 built west of US 31 in Westfield. Wilma, I apologize. We may have to do some more research on that one. Let's see, another question from Melinda about how we find out improvement plans for Girls School Road, particularly as it relates to pavement and other issues. The Indianapolis Department of Public Works maintains the sections north and south of Rockville Road, and they put a lot of information about their improvement plans on their website. In addition, there is some information available through the Indianapolis Metropolitan Planning Organization, which Dave mentioned earlier. But that's sort of planning and programmatic information. Really, if you can get it from DPW directly, that's probably the best way to do so. And so that helps. And I do see a note in response to our earlier question about there are sections of Ronald Reagan that have a multi-use path over in Hendricks County. So that's a good addition there. So we are starting to run low on questions, and I know that we're coming up on the hour of when we got this started. So let's see. I do have something from Wilma that just came in from Wilma regarding another question. The question, I think it's probably this one. What do you mean about short term? So there's a concern about the shoulder on Rockville, particularly as it relates to traffic getting on and off maybe school buses, and the concern about the speed that traffic goes. So we discussed that a little bit relating to UPS, USPS. Again, when we talk about displaced lefts as a short-term solution, is there anything else that we want to add that we haven't already addressed in that regard?
I don't think so. She mentioned in her question how fast people drive. And as part of adding that the raised center median, the exterior curb, tightening those lanes, all of those things they give you less freedom, or the feel of less freedom. So people in general will slow down if you feel the driving area is constricted, which has been shown in other areas to reduce speeds. So as for the policing, that's beyond the scope of my knowledge.
Yeah, and there are some state grants that are provided for traffic enforcement. I know that Indianapolis Metropolitan Police is very active in traffic enforcement around the city. Okay, I think we're running low on questions at this point, so I'm going to give folks one other moment to see if anything else comes in, and otherwise we will press pause on this session for right now. Return for the second session at 6 p.m. for those folks who maybe couldn't make an earlier meeting during the day. I did see a note coming in from Jeffrey about light timing, reducing speeds. And thank you, thank you for Laura for your thanks on this. And so, give one more moment, and if not, I think we'll press pause on that. We're going to throw up a slide similar to what you saw at the very beginning. Just buying another moment in case we see anything else coming in, but I'm not seeing it. So